Thank you, Mayor, members of Council. Good evening to everyone that is here in the Council, as well as those in attendance tonight. I do have a number of operational, community, economic development, and personnel matters I want to update the Council on. As I mentioned to you a couple of meetings ago, I'm going to start formalizing my report and actually creating a new segment from our City Council highlights, because we'd like to keep them to about 5 minutes. Creating the city manager's report, because it is an intricate part of updating the council on things that are going on. Obviously, I stay in communication with the council members daily, and I think that there are a lot of things that I communicate, we talk about as a staff or a governing body, that I'd like to put out into the public that is happening in an effort to continue to provide maximum transparency to the things that we're doing. So the first thing I want to mention is on the agenda earlier this evening, under the consent agenda, the City Council approved and authorized an agreement for professional services to a company known as Green Rivers Associates, acting as Green River Engineering, for the Highland Park Master Plan to actually build a rugby field. This is in the east part of our community. This was a bond project that was approved by voters in 2004, and the funding was in 2014. And so we're going to begin the master planning for the development of the rugby field, as well as additional improvements. There's approximately $200,000 that's available for the professional services as well as the improvements. So that's going to be a nice addition. It's very close to the elementary school there. So I'm very excited about the fact that council approved that award of that professional service tonight. The second thing I wanted to mention, I did mention this in the Broken Arrow in Motion, is that Thor Rooks with the Parks Department submitted our tourism sports video for award, and we won. We won the 2019 Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas Award for Best Public Service Announcement. It's professional videos at the Southwest Parks and Recreation Training Institute Regional Conference. Obviously, we're trying to promote our community, promote tourism, and receiving this award had a lot of great feedback from the video that was prepared, and I wanted to thank Thor and also for Lori Hill for I asked her to put these together, and she immediately jumped on it, and they have been recognized as from around the area for, being high quality, as well as promoting our fields, because youth sports is one of our largest niches. So I want to thank her for making that happen. The next thing I wanted to report on is this is something that I'm so excited about. Chief Berryhill came to me recently and talked to me about an initiative that his agency, our police department, wanted to undertake. And I'm pleased to announce that this spring, the chief and the police department will be holding our first ever Citizens of Police Academy for our Spanish-speaking residents. One of the goals of Chief Berryhill for this year and the coming years is to begin and continue ongoing to reach out to those folks that are underserved within our community and make sure that we're representing everyone. And I think obviously this is a great opportunity. The department is kicking off the first police academy for Spanish-speaking residents. It's going to start on April 23rd. Officer Michael Peel has worked extensively with the Broken Arrow Ministerial Alliance, members of the Spanish Council for Neighborhood Safety, promoted it on social media, as well as spoken to a number of Spanish-speaking citizens within our community to promote the outreach and participation. This inaugural academy is scheduled for 6 consecutive Tuesday evenings, and we're going to be utilizing bilingual Broken Arrow Police Department employees. So actually, the folks are going to get a chance to interact with our folks within the agency. This is going to include dispatchers and many of our volunteers. As you know, we have several hundred volunteers that work with the police department. Once again, the goal of the academy is to improve relations between the police department and the Spanish-speaking community. And we do have a lot of folks in our community that speak Spanish, and we want to make sure that they have a level of comfort and trust with our police department should they need us. I want to thank the chief who's in the audience tonight, and just for actually taking this initiative and kicking it off, and certainly want to involve the council, and we will keep you posted as we move forward with the academy. Next, our Focus newsletter. We continue to provide 2 inserts. The focus this time, really 2 topics. First and foremost, was a focus on public safety. Obviously, we recently received a designation as being one of the safest communities in America, over 100,000. This edition that goes out in our utility bills, the top story is Broken Arrow and Tulsa Fire conduct joint training. I think it's very important. I'm a 1,000% believer in both mutual and automatic aid, and the importance of making sure that we are working with the communities surround us, helping them helping us. For example, in the fire that took place, unfortunately, yesterday, temporarily we had City of Tulsa Fire Department vehicles in 2 of our stations helping us while our firefighters were on the scene. They were here for about an hour or so, making sure that our city was continued to be protected when that happens. And there's also some additional stories in there about other aspects of public safety. The second one, which the council members asked me to prepare, was more about how the city council manager form of government works. I mean, obviously, when you have a city of 115,000 folks, 30-some thousand utility customers, sometimes there's questions about how does the form of government work, how does a city council meeting work, and there's going to be a whole nother segment in the focus talking about exactly how the city council runs a meeting. How does the consent agenda work, for example, general business? Because what happens is you all get your packets usually on Friday, and I know you read them because I get dozens of questions on Monday, okay? And so the public sometimes just see you actually going through this and voting. However, it's not that way. You know, what happens is Council Wimpy, being the newest member of council, she leads in questions asked, okay, right now. But for the most part, everybody gets the question. So if she asks questions, or it's the mayor or Councilman Parks, whatever the responses are, Jennifer sends all of the responses to the council members, because some of you can't look at your packets on Friday. It may not be till Monday or so based on your schedule. But I think the folks are going to find this very helpful to learn more about our form of government. I do have a few economic development announcements I want to make. I want to start off with something that I am very excited about. I'd asked Norm if he would come forward and introduce the new Vice President of Economic Development for the Broken Arrow Chamber of Commerce and EDC.
Good afternoon. Good evening, Mayor and council members. In a couple of weeks, I will come before you and do a presentation on the city manager and my efforts towards regionalism and economic development in Wagner County. We think it's very, very important, and we're excited about the things that are happening, and we will present that information to you. About 3 years ago, when I came to the city manager and told him some of the things I wanted to try to do, he blessed me to go out and seek knowledge, and that's what I did. And the first person that I called was a person who I knew through economic development channels named Darla Heller. Darla has worked in Wagner County. She has worked in all over the state of Oklahoma doing economic development, and I've always been very, very impressed with Darla. I sat down with her and just peppered her with questions, and she was able to give me tremendous insight in the direction to go. As we've gone through a transition with the Economic Development Corporation, we've had the opportunity, or they have had the opportunity, to hire some new staff, and I am very, very pleased to announce that on March 1st, Rob Whitlock, who's in the office, he's the chairman of the Broken Arrow Economic Development Corporation, they hired Darla Heller to fill the position of Vice President of Economic Development, and she began working last Friday. I couldn't be more excited. I can't think of anybody in economic development who will do a finer job, who has a broader base of knowledge, and who gets it, who gets partnerships, who gets regionalism and gets manufacturing, and also who knows retail and is excited to be a part of it. If it's okay with you, Mr. City Manager, I'd like to invite Darla up and allow her to address council.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Norm, and thank you, Mr. Spurgeon, Mayor, Council, for the opportunity to speak in front of you this evening. Again, my name is Darla Heller. Been on the job now 3 days and excited about this opportunity. Like Norm mentioned to you, I have worked in economic development for about 18 years, worked in a county capacity there in Wagner County where I live. I worked for the State Department of Commerce for several years, and for the last couple of years worked as the executive director for a regional economic development effort that covered 14 counties of northeast Oklahoma, of which Wagner County and all of the eastern side of the state was included in. I'm excited about the opportunity to be working on a community level on a city as prestigious as Broken Arrow is. I look forward to working with the EDC board as well as the chamber to make sure that those deliverables that you outlined in that contract that you have with those organizations are met in terms of economic development, retail, as well as industrial recruitment, retention, tourism, entrepreneurship, and all those levels. I approach every endeavor that I take on from a servant standpoint, and I hope to be a servant to all of you. So, if you have any questions.
Any questions for Darla?
Any questions?
Welcome aboard.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks, Norm. Thanks, Darla. A little bit later on this evening, Norm is going to come before the City Council and give you an update on our business retention and engagement program that we are implementing as part of our new economic development model. So I'm looking forward to having Norm come back to the podium to present to Beta exactly where we are. I also wanted to mention something that I find very exciting for our community. I've decided that working with our directors to reestablish our community service program. According to Phil Hink, about 15 years ago, up until about 15 years ago, I should say, the city had a community service program working with the municipal court, and they went away from that. And so as a part of a pilot program, I'm going to initiate a community service program that's going to run from April to October of this year. We're going to pick out one day per week and then probably a couple of Saturdays per month, and we're going to allow the defendants that go see the judge the opportunity to actually work community service in lieu of basically paying their fines, and our focus is going to be more specifically on litter removal and beautification. The program's going to be supervised by Curtis Gring, our city clerk, and his team in municipal court, and Rocky Hinkle and Phil Hinks, and the soon new Parks Director will actually be the individuals that will be working with those folks that choose to participate in the program. Our goal is to, once again, is to continue to beautify our city. And, obviously the wind blows here, so you can have a street that's clean today and 2 days later, half the trash in Broken Arrow will end up on that street. It's just unfortunately the way it is. So we want to make sure that our entrances are attractive, and this is a good opportunity to help both those defendants as well as the city with beautification. So I want to let the council know, and I'll keep you posted on the days once we pick those out, but it is going to start in April, and then it'll run through October. Then we'll do an after-action report, determine what worked, what changes we need to make, and then we'll actually implement the program. Probably going to run from April to October every year in the time of season where people can get out on one day a week or on the weekends and actually get something done. I wanted to mention, with regard to the Parks and Recreation Director recruitment, with the help of Kenny Schwab, our Assistant City Manager of Operations, and Jeanette McCormick, I have narrowed the candidates for our next director down to 4. And later this week, those 4 candidates are going to be in Broken Arrow for face-to-face interviews. The goal is to select 2 finalists for the position, and because of the importance of this position, I fully anticipate that the selection team is actually going to travel to the communities of those 2 finalists to actually take a look at their parks improvements, finish the final face-to-face interviews, and then my goal is to with the help of Mr. Schwab, because it's his division, is to select our new Parks and Recreation Director by the end of this month or in early April. So, I also wanted to mention that this is really cool. Upcoming, there's a National Floodplain Management Forum that's going to be held in Washington, D.C. on March 12th and 13th. And Jeff Bigby, our floodplain manager, everybody knows and loves Jeff, is actually been asked to participate and possibly present at that national forum in Washington. His trip's going to be paid for by the Oklahoma Floodplain Managers Association, but I think it's awesome that we have someone recognized that can actually go and present at a national level. So I want to thank Kenny, and I want to recognize Jeff for his leadership in the area of stormwater management. Also, Mr. Schwab and Chuck Vokes, our utility director, they made the selection of Travis Shimonia to take Jerry Hanwinkle's position. As you know, Jerry was promoted recently. Travis Shimonia is going to hold the position of utilities water division supervisor. I've met with Travis, and I think he's the right person for the position. So, great choice, Kenny, Chuck. The last thing I want to mention, I do want to make sure that we do have a discussion about the recent announcement by Reesers. As the council members know, just a couple of weeks ago, Jeff Reeser with Reesers announced that they would be closing the store at New Orleans and Elm Place. I wanted to assure the council members that we have already spoken to Mr. Reeser about his interest in South Broken Arrow, and he has assured us that he is ready to continue those conversations with the city. He is very much interested and basically told us he's very committed to actually putting a store in South Broken Arrow and would like to work with the city in trying to find the right location. And we have assured him that the council is very interested in working with him as well. And so those conversations are going to continue. So I wanted to make sure that I brought this up to see if there's any questions the council may have about this. I mean, obviously, we're disappointed in the decision because, you know, we don't want to lose any business. And it just continues the criticisms about South Broken Arrow whenever the city has made, trying to create the best environment for those that want to make private investments. And so when you lose a business of this important, it's hard. It's very difficult. However, I just want to assure the public and the council is that we've had good conversations with Mr. Reeser. We've had good conversations with Danny Signorelli, and I think those conversations are going to continue.
And also the conversations you had, I know, with Reesers has been ongoing for a year or two also. It's not just something that's come up in the last week or two.
No, I actually had conversations with Mr. Reeser a couple of times last year, and Norm has been speaking to him for several years about what's he going to do. And obviously, the fact that he came out with an email to all the customers, and I know he had hundreds of folks that contacted him expressing their concern about the closure. He put out an email explaining that it was purely a business decision, and the fact that that building simply did not work for the model that he uses. When we met with him recently, he explained to us the type of prototype, that store that he's looking for, which is similar to size for the one we have in North Broken Arrow, as well as a couple of other stores that he has, very similar to the one on Peoria as well as Lewis. And he's very interested. He understands that there's a customer base that obviously could be lost if, in fact, he doesn't put a store there. And so that was purely a business decision. However, the city understands that was that decision, but we're not going to just stop because he's not going to be there. We still want to continue to try to find a location for him. We did talk to him about the possibility of providing incentives, and I told him I would come back to the council, but he said based on the model and the cost, the margin that goes along with groceries, that store just did not work for him. So he is, though, very interested, and I'll be glad to answer any other questions the council have. Otherwise, I'll keep you posted as we continue those conversations.
Any questions, Mr. Spurgeon, over anything he addressed?
Well, I want to thank you and Norm for continuing those discussions. I know this has been on the research thing, something that's you've been working long and hard on, and I know that'll continue. So thank you. The other thing is on the community service program, re-implementing that. I'm glad to see that. As a young lawyer, 20 years ago or so, I was cutting my teeth on a little bit of criminal work down in the municipal courts, and one of the benefits of that was when you have a young person or even someone who's got a little age on them who failed to did it messed up in some way or another. It was nice to have that opportunity for them to say, especially if they didn't have financial means, I can do this. I can repay my debt and this mistake in this way. And so I'm glad to see this. I'm anxious to see how it goes because I think it allows. It's another option for executing justice that can be a positive for both the community and the person who's the defendant. So I'm glad to hear that. I'm anxious to see how it goes.
We are too. I want to thank Curtis and Russell, as Judge Edgar is fully in support of this. For the very same reasons that you talked about, Councilman. Vice Mayor, so I'm pretty excited about it, and I'm very happy with Phil and Rocky and Curtis jumping in and basically saying we're going to make this happen.